Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to find out if some of BookTube's most beloved books are actually worth the hype. Today is going to be the start of a new reading vlog that is going to be all about reading super hyped 2019 releases and finding out if they are actually worth it. I am the kind of person that when it comes to hyped books, I can go either way. Sometimes I really want to read the book right away and I want to have an opinion immediately, and sometimes I want to wait until the hype dies down and find out if it actually is worth it or if it's just like in the moment everybody's loving it. Today I have 5 books that I am going to be reading over the course of the next couple of weeks and finding out if they are in fact worth the hype. These are all books that I've had on my TBR that I've had some interest in, but that I wanted to wait until the hype died down to really decide if it was something that I was going to want to read. And I feel like enough time has passed with all these books that I'm finally ready to give them a go and find out if they are worth all the hype that they got when they came out. I don't remember the exact release dates for most of these, but I'm going to try to go kind of in release date order. And the first one here, I know for a fact came out in January because I have been really excited to read it since it was announced. I actually had it pre-ordered. I've had it since it came out and I still haven't read it. And it is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the Nikolai duology. I really don't have an excuse for why I haven't read this other than it was so hyped, like getting ready for the release of it, and then when it came out, I saw a lot of mixed reviews, a lot of really negative reviews, and so I feel like that's kind of put me off reading it for most of the year, but I feel like it's finally time to read King of Scars. I actually this month just read The Language of Thorns, which is the short story collection that is set in the Grisha world, and I feel like reading that really got me back into the Grisha mood, and so I'm finally ready to tackle King of Scars. This was really hyped for people who love Leigh Bardugo, who love the Grisha trilogy or the Six of Crows duology, and I love both of those series so much, so I feel like it's time to find out if King of Scars is worth all the hype and how I ultimately feel about it. Another book that I'm pretty sure came out in January is A Curse of Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kimmerer. I'm sorry, my ring light is there and this is a library book, so it's super shiny. This is a YA fantasy Beauty and the Beast retelling, except for I believe the main character, the main girl character, is from our world and she gets taken to the fantastical world. I don't know a ton about it other than that. I like Beauty and the Beast retellings to a point, but I feel like they're all very the same, and I feel like this one got really hyped because it does things a little bit differently, and so I'm really eager to find out how I feel about it, to see if I like it. You know, sometimes, you know, they're all hit or miss, and I really hope that this one ends up being a hit. So the last of the books I have here physically is The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman, also a library book, I'm sorry. This, I have been told, is a mix of The Raven Boys and Stranger Things, and I love The Raven Cycle so much. It's one of my favorite series of all time, and just this month my boyfriend and I have started watching Stranger Things, and so I feel like now that I have the context of both comparisons that this book gets, I feel like it's finally time to dive into this and see how I feel about it. I think it's about this town that is surrounded by these woods, and I think there might be something creepy going on with the woods, and it's all about, I think, some teenagers that come from the founding families of this town and how they play a role in this town. I don't really know much about it, but I am really excited to read it. I think this one got the most hype of maybe any of the books on my list. When it came out, it was so hyped. I think it came out in like April or May, and everybody was reading it and everybody was loving it, and so I'm really eager to see how I feel about it. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm still excited. I think I'm gonna be saving this one for the Spookathon because I think it's gonna fit the Spookathon vibe really well. The last 2 books on my TBR are books that I have as audiobooks and ebooks from the library because I couldn't get the physical book here to show you. The one I have on audio is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I felt like with all this fantasy and stuff, I needed to throw in a contemporary, and this is a very hyped book, I feel. On the Come Up is Angie Thomas's sophomore novel. It is her follow-up to the very popular, very critically acclaimed The Hate You Give, which I read the year it came out and I liked it. I didn't love it. I had a lot of issues with the writing style and I felt like the book was just a little bit too long, but I'm really eager to see what she's done next. I'm eager to see how her writing has evolved. I'm sure it has. I have heard from so many people that On the Come Up is better than The Hate U Give, so that has me really interested. A lot of the things I liked about The Hate U Give, like the social commentary and the family dynamics and the characters, I think that those elements are still going to be really prevalent in On the Come Up, so I'm very interested to see how I feel about this one. I'm going to be listening to the audiobook because that's how I read The Hate U Give, and I loved the audiobook narrator for The Hate U Give, and the same narrator is narrating On the Come Up, so I'm going to be listening to that, and I'm excited. I'm nervous about this one, but also excited. And the last book on this little TBR is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. I debated what I wanted my 5th book to be, and ultimately I just had to go with Wilder Girls because when it came out, it was really hyped. Even before it came out, so many people were talking about it, and a lot of people got to read it early, and so a lot of the early buzz was all just so positive. I have seen some mixed reviews for this one as well, but I feel like most people tend to really like it, and so I'm really interested to see how I feel about it. It is a YA sci-fi horror type novel about a group of girls who are stuck on this island because they were all in this boarding school when a tox hit, and basically they have like quarantined themselves on this island, and there's a lot of weird body horror going on. Some things are happening to these girls because of this tox, and it's changing their bodies, and things are happening. And I believe the main character, her best friend, has gone missing, and she's trying to figure out exactly what happened. And I'm really excited about this one. I've had it out from the library multiple times since it came out, and I just haven't read it yet. Right now I have it out as an ebook, so hopefully I will be able to read all of these books before they're due back, and I really hope that they all live up to the hype for me. I'm not really sure which book I'm going to start with, but I'm really excited about this. Hi, the lighting here is kind of bad, but we're dealing with it. I started my first book today, and I decided to start A Curse so Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer, and I'm already 53 pages into it, so I'm a little ways in, not like a ton of the way through, a good ways through. I'm not that far in, but I feel like I'm far enough in that I've got a pretty good sense of the story. I've got a pretty good sense of the characters, and I am interested. I'm not like loving it, though I don't know that I am far enough in to like really have like a proper like opinion or judgment about it just yet, but I am liking it. I think the writing is really easy to read. I think that the characters are intriguing enough that I want to know what's going to happen with them. It alternates perspectives between the girl and the prince. The girl's name is Harper. She has cerebral palsy, and basically where I'm at now in the book, she's just gotten to the fantasy location, which is called Emberfall, and the prince of Emberfall, his name is Ren, and he's obviously cursed, and they have to fall in love to break the curse. I mean, it's a classic Beauty and the Beast story. There's also a third character in this. His name is Gray, and he is the commander of the King's Guard, even though at this point there's basically no guard left to command because Ren, every time the season ends and he becomes the Beast, he kills people. So yeah, I'm definitely intrigued enough to keep going. I'm liking the fact that the chapters are really short. I think having really long chapters on top of having a book that's a pretty decent length would be a little bit tedious, but these chapters are like max 10 to 12 pages, which is kind of like the sweet spot for me when it comes to chapter length. I think that I'll get a good chunk of this read tonight. I think that this is a book that I will be able to read fairly quickly because, like I said, I just was reading it on my breaks and stuff at work today, and I'm already 50 pages in, so I'm hoping that it will continue to surprise me and live up to the hype, but we will have to wait and see. Okay. So it's a Saturday. The Spookathon starts on Monday, and I have another book from this secret project on my Spookathon TBR. So I have to finish A Curse so Dark and Lonely before Monday because this is not on my Spookathon TBR. And I'm currently 65 pages in. So let's find out if I can read this entire book in a day. I don't know that I'll be able to. It's been so long since I just sat and like binge read a book in a day. It's currently 9:45 on Saturday, so it's not even like daytime, it's nighttime. I'm so screwed. Okay, yep, I'm gonna try it. We're gonna give it a go. We're gonna see if I can actually read this in a day. It's been a few hours and I have been reading as much as I can, and I am actually almost at the halfway mark of this book, and I'm surprised honestly at how quickly I have fallen into the story. I am surprised that in just a couple of hours I read basically half the book, and I'm really enjoying it. Obviously, this is like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so it has a lot of those Beauty and the Beast tropes that you see a lot in retellings like this. But it also has some elements that are shocking me. I can tell that there's some kind of secret being kept, or there's going to be more to the story, more to the characters, more to exactly what is happening, but I honestly have no idea what it's going to be. I feel like this is a book that may end up surprising me with its like little plot twists and stuff, because so far I'm liking it, and I'm liking the elements of the Beauty and the Beast story that are thrown in, but I honestly just have no idea where the rest of the story is gonna go. Some things that I really especially like about it: the chapters are short, so I'm getting through the book fairly quickly. Also, I like that it's so compulsively readable. Like, I sat down and read like 200 pages of this in like 2 hours. So yeah, I couldn't stop, and I really am enjoying the fact that I'm just like getting through it so quickly. I also really like the characters. The main character, Harper, I think she's really strong. She is really smart, and I'm really interested to see more of how her character develops as the story goes on. The two guys, Ren, the prince, I like him, but I don't think I know him well enough yet to make a judgment on him. And I think the same can be said for Gray. I am a little bit worried that it's going to be like a love triangle situation, because that's kind of what it's seeming like they're setting it up for a love triangle. I don't know if the nature of the story is going to allow for a love triangle, so I'm interested to see how that plays out. I also really like the fact that it's a fantasy that's not super fantastical. Like, it's set in a fantasy world and there is magic, but none of the main characters can do magic. Magic exists in the world but isn't like super present, and I like that because it makes the story seem a little bit more grounded in reality. And I like fantasy, I like magic and stuff, but sometimes I like stories that are fantastical without a ton of magic, and that's what this is. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be able to finish this tomorrow. If I read anything like I did just tonight, like just a couple of hours, if I can just knock this out like first thing in the morning, that would be great. So stay tuned for my final thoughts on this. It's almost 1 a.m. so I'm actually about to just like go to bed because I'm so tired. But I wanted to do a quick check-in since I did say I was gonna try to read a ton of it tonight, and I did. I read like 200 pages, so yay. Hello, I look like a real person today. It has been a few days since I vlogged, but I actually have a ton of stuff to catch you up on. So I finally finished A Curse of Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. I actually finished this like the next day after my previous vlog clip, but this week has been kind of a nightmare, so I haven't actually had a chance to sit down and vlog the end of my feelings about this, which I think worked out pretty well because I've had a couple of days to reflect on it. I've been thinking about it, and now I can give you a fully formed kind of review, my thoughts on A Curse of Dark and Lonely. So overall, I ended up really enjoying this. This is not a book that I ever really anticipated myself picking up. When it first came out and was really hyped, I was interested, but never enough to go out and buy it, never enough to pick it up. And as the hype started dying down, I started seeing more mixed reviews for it. I mean, still mostly positive, but I did see some mixed reviews for it. So that kind of just solidified in my mind that I probably would never read it. And then when I decided to do this video, this was obviously one of the first books that I chose. And I I'm so glad that I read this. It ended up being so good. You know, I was reading it when I first started it. I got to about like 65 pages, and then I set it down for a couple of days to read something else. And then I made it my goal to finish it over this past weekend. And I basically read this whole thing in a day, and it's so easily readable. It was so entertaining. There was never a dull moment. I felt like the action was constant. The characters were always doing something to keep the story moving. I really, really loved all three of the main characters. We really only read from the girl main character, Harper, and the prince, Wren. We really only read from their perspectives for most of the book, but we also have a third character, Gray, who is the guard commander. And he is, I would say, equally as much of a main character as Harper and Wren. And I really loved all three of them. I was worried for a minute that there was going to be like this weird love triangle thing. The nature of the story did not allow that, and it didn't go into that territory, which I was so happy about. I just think this ended up being so good. It just completely surprised me. I mean, really, this book just ended up taking me completely by surprise, and I cannot wait to read the sequel, which comes out in January. This isn't like a new favorite thing of all time. I gave it 4 stars, which I feel like is a pretty fair rating. I didn't really have any major complaints with the book. When I was writing my review on Goodreads, I couldn't come up with a reason for why I didn't give it 5 stars, but it was just like a feeling when I finished it that it's a 4-star book. And so that's what I gave it. But I am still really excited to read the next book. I really want to know what's going to happen next. Does this book live up to the hype? Yeah, absolutely. It ended up being really, really good. And obviously right now the Spookathon is happening, and I am participating in that. So my reading has deviated a little bit from my hyped books TBR to my Spookathon TBR. But I managed to put one of my hyped books on my Spookathon TBR, and so that's what I've started today, and it is The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. I am not too far in. I'm on page 36, so I've read just a couple of chapters. So far, I like the writing. I'm interested in the characters. I'm not far enough in really to make a determination, but I think I'm gonna try to finish this tomorrow. I have the audiobook on Scribd, so I might do like a back and forth thing and listen while I'm at work and then read it when I'm at home. But I really would like to try and finish this one tomorrow, because I still have a few more books on my Spookathon TBR that I need to read. Plus, I still have 3 books after this to read for this TBR. So I gotta get a move on, because I have a day in mind that I want this video to go up. So I have a lot of reading to do between now and then. Anyway, I just wanted to do a really quick update. I wanted you to know that I finished a book finally for this vlog, and I've moved on to book 2. I'm anticipating finishing this one tomorrow. I'm gonna read a little bit of it tonight, and then I'm gonna try to finish it up tomorrow. Is this just a vlog of me in bad lighting? Yes. Okay, so I have a bit of an update. As you know, I've been reading The Devouring Grey, and when I last talked to you about this, which was yesterday for me, it was, you know, just a few seconds ago for you, I was on page 36, and now I'm all the way up to page 219. So I read almost 200 pages today. Actually, I listened to the audiobook for most of the day because I was running late this morning as per usual, and I forgot to stick this in my bag. So I got the audiobook on Scribd and I listened to that while I was at work. I can definitely understand why this book is hyped. It ticks a lot of boxes, I think, for a lot of people. It's got a spooky setting. It's got a really compelling group of main characters. There is a mystery at the heart of the story. I get it because the nature of the story kind of keeps you reading, even if you're not getting a ton of information, if that makes sense. However, I'm not totally loving this, to be honest. And part of it could be the audiobook, because I really actually am not a big fan of the narrator, and I don't think the narrator is really doing the story justice. But I also don't love the writing style, so I think even if I was reading it physically, like mainly reading it physically, I'd still be struggling with it a little bit. I'm not liking it, and like I said, I can definitely see why it's hyped. I just think that at this point in time where I'm at in the story, I can see why it's a little bit overhyped. I don't know that I explained it very well, but basically this book is about a town where there are 4 main families that are like the founders of the town. And each of these families has magic. Basically, each family is able to do something different, and they're basically charged with protecting the town. And all the main characters in this book are the current generation, like teenagers. They're all in high school, and it's the current generation of these families, and they all have really complicated relationships with each other. They all have really complicated histories, and one of the main characters, her family has been gone from this town, and she really doesn't know much about it. But at the beginning of the book, they move back. Her family moves back, and she's slowly learning about this town and about the magic and about her role in this town and her family's role in this town. And I feel like the author is using the fact that this one character has to learn about this town to info dump everything about this town and about exactly what's going on. So I don't think that the way the information is being given to the readers is the best. I think it's a little bit info dumpy. I think it's a little bit like telling, not showing. And I don't know. I think that there's something a little bit clunky about the writing style. I think that the story is really interesting. It's not being told in a way that doesn't invite more questions than answers. Like, I'm reading in it, I'm still really confused about this world, about the reasons why these families are in charge. I'm confused about the magic. I don't really understand, and I'm like 2/3 of the way into the book. I only have like 40% of the book left. So I feel like I should know more than I do at this point. I definitely want to see how the story is going to conclude, because I feel like there's still so much stuff that needs to happen for this book's story arc to be complete. And I don't know that there's enough time left to get there, but we'll see. So I guess that's my update for now. I will check in again probably when I finish the book. And if I finish it tonight, it'll probably be tomorrow. Good morning. I'm in my spare room today because I just came here to get something and realized that the lighting was so good that I needed to film this clip in here. I literally just woke up. I'm so tired. But I finally finished The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. I just had about 60 pages of this left when I went to work yesterday, and I just finished off the audiobook while I was on my way to work, actually. And I've been having a little bit of trouble processing this book. I haven't even written my Goodreads review yet because I keep going back and forth on how I'm feeling about it. Overall, I do like it. I liked the concept. I really liked the idea of it. I liked the characters a lot. I thought all the characters were really interesting. I like the fact that, okay, I guess I need to back up a little bit. So I talked about this before, how this book is about this town that is basically ruled or governed or ran by these 4 families that were the original founders of this town. The 4 original founders trapped this beast in the gray by taking part of its magic into themselves, and each founder and subsequent family has different abilities. So one family can control stones and rocks, one can control like the future, seeing the future, memory, stuff like that, one can do stuff with the dead, stuff like that. And I like the fact that each family has its own magical aspect to it, but everybody in that family's powers manifest differently. So one of the main characters, her family deals with the dead, and like one person in the family can tell you when you're going to die or can tell you details about your death, and then one person can raise the dead. So it's just really interesting how there is like rules to the magic, but within each family it's not always necessarily the same. I liked that. I don't know that I explained that very well, but that I did like. What I didn't like was the writing style wasn't the best. It felt very choppy at times, but then also it felt very clunky at other times. I also don't think the villain, like the bad guy, I never really understood the stakes of the story. There's this evil presence in this town. It never really explained like its exact motivations and why it was doing the things it was doing. Everything about it was just a little bit confusing, and I'm sorry, I'm about to yawn. I just didn't really find the bad guy or the evil aspect of the story to be super believable because I didn't really understand it that much. I don't think that the history of the bad thing was ever really explained fully to where it made sense in the story. That all being said, I do understand why this book is so hyped. I understand why people love it. It does have certain aspects to it that are super compelling. I've mentioned before that this book often gets compared to The Raven Boys and Stranger Things, and I will definitely agree with the Stranger Things comparison. I'm right now watching the show, so I'm very in that world, and the gray is very much like the Upside Down, like there's something creepy going on in this town. I don't know that I would necessarily agree with The Raven Boys. I think the only reason it gets compared to The Raven Boys is because it's like a group of 4 or 5 people that are working together, and they're all teenagers, and they have a lot of stakes in this town and in exactly what's happening. But I don't think that in any other aspect it's similar to The Raven Boys at all. So if you're going into this book thinking it's going to be like The Raven Boys, it's not going to be. I don't know, I did like it. I'm gonna probably give it like about a 3-star. I was debating like 3 or 4 stars, but I think I'm gonna stick with 3 stars because I mean, I liked it, and I might continue on with the series. Like when the second book comes out, I might read it, but I don't know, I'm not super invested enough to really care beyond book 1. So I decided to go ahead and start my next book, and I decided to do King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. The spookathon is officially over. It is Sunday night. Like, I'm not gonna be reading any more spooky books, so I'm getting back to my regular reading. I've mentioned several times already that I'm on a deadline for this video because I have a specific day that I want to post it, and I still have 3 books to read, and I really only have like 4 days left to read them. So this should definitely be interesting. I am reading King of Scars because I was trying to decide which of the 2 audiobooks I wanted to start today, and I was doing some housework, and this is the one that I went with because when I really started thinking about what I was in the mood for, fantasy is it right now. So I have started this, as I've said, and I'm already up to page 65, which, you know, isn't a lot of the book, but it is like chapter 5, and it is a couple of hours into the audiobook, which is only like 16 hours total. So if I'm able to listen on my way to work tomorrow, and if I get any listening done at work tomorrow, I might actually be able to finish this all by tomorrow. We'll just have to wait and see on that one. It's a toss-up, honestly. This is obviously the first book in the Nikolai duology. Of the 4 chapters that I've read so far, only one of them has been from Nikolai's point of view. So I'm interested to continue on with this. I know that that's one of the biggest complaints that people have had with this book, is that it's pitched as Nikolai's book, but Nikolai is hardly in it. He's really probably not even the main character, and it's not really even his story. Right now, I'm just so enjoying getting sucked back into the Grisha world and Leigh Bardugo's beautiful writing style. The other 2 perspective characters in this are Nina from the Six of Crows duology, which admittedly is not that exciting for me because I personally, I like Nina, but she's not my favorite character, and I don't love the idea of reading solely, or not solely, but like a lot from her point of view in this series. I just know how her story ended after the end of Crooked Kingdom, and I don't want to explore that really, but obviously I'm gonna, if I'm gonna read this book. And the other perspective character is Zoya from the Grisha trilogy, which I am really excited to learn more about because she's definitely a secondary character in the original trilogy, and you don't really get to learn a lot about her. I'm really hoping that this book will just do like a deep dive into her past, and we'll just really get to know her as a character, because she's definitely a character in the series that I wish I knew more about, and so I am excited to read from her perspective. And then of course I'm excited about reading from Nikolai's perspective because he is one of my favorite characters in the whole Grishaverse, like probably like in the top 3. So I'm interested to see how his story is going to play out, but I'm also really interested to see like how they develop his story, because I obviously don't want to spoil anything. This is a hard book to talk about in a vlog like this because you really have to have read the other series to read this, and I don't want to spoil those series for anybody if you haven't read them. But I'm just really interested to see like how they explore this storyline and what's going to happen. So this is the book that I'm reading right now, and I am hoping to finish it in the next couple of days. So it's been a few days since I updated. I feel like my last update was also in this exact position. I am still listening to the audiobook of King of Scars. I'm just about halfway. I've actually listened to a little bit more of it than what I've got marked here. I'm liking it a lot. I love being back in this world with these characters. I have so much love for Leigh Bardugo and this world and this series that she's created. I think the reason I haven't finished it yet, because my aim was to finish it early this week, and I'm going out of town tomorrow. I'm gonna be out of town for 4 days. I'm gonna have no time to read. So if I don't finish this tonight / in the morning, then this video is not going to go up on time, which is going to suck. But I think the reason I haven't finished it yet is because we're reading from 3 different perspectives in this book, and I only care about 2 of them. I feel like the most unpopular opinion about the Grisha series, the scope of the Grisha series, Shadow and Bone, Six of Crows, all that, is that I really don't care that much about Nina's storyline. Yes, in Six of Crows, she was this badass, amazing character who really like came into herself and like really like owned what kind of person she was throughout the course of that duology, and she kind of figured out what she wanted in life. After the events of Crooked Kingdom, obviously she's had a little bit of a setback, and this book is her coming to terms with a lot of what's happened to her and the way that her life has gone. And I do have a lot of respect and empathy for her storyline, and I definitely, you know, feel for the difficult bits that she's gone through, but I just do not care. It doesn't seem like the way her story is going to connect with Zoya and Nikolai's story at all. I don't see that happening in this book. I'm afraid that it will be in the second book that we'll actually like see what she's doing like match up with what they're doing. I just don't know how at this point the 2 storylines are going to converge. Even though I'm not, you know, finished with this book, obviously, I am interested to see how eventually the storylines connect, but right now it feels like 2 completely separate stories. That being said, I love Nikolai. I love him so much, and I'm enjoying reading from his perspective. I'm enjoying reading about him through Zoya's eyes. I love Zoya too. I mean, I'm just getting a whole new respect for her from what I've read from this so far. I feel like in Shadow and Bone, in the original Grisha trilogy, Zoya is almost a little bit misunderstood because we don't get to spend a lot of time with her. We don't really get to know her very well until like the last half of the series, like later in the second book and into the third book. We don't really get to know what kind of like character and person she is. This book is just opening up her whole backstory. We're getting to know her as this like amazing, powerful, badass Grisha, and I love them both so much. Nikolai, I think, is probably my favorite character, probably my second favorite character in like the Grisha world, because Kazbrecker is everything to me. I'm loving those parts of it. If we could just cut Nina out completely, I think this would hands down be like an absolute new favorite. Like, I feel like I'm still gonna rate it high because I am enjoying the experience of reading it, but I think the reason that I haven't finished it yet is because I don't care about Nina's perspective. Like, every time it's time to read from her perspective, I'm like, I wish I could just skip over this. And I almost feel like I could, and I would not lose anything in the story. I'm gonna go read for a little bit, and I'm about to eat dinner actually, so I'm gonna go probably eat dinner, and then I'm gonna read for a little bit, and then I guess I'll check in when I have more to say. Well, hello. It has been about a week since I updated the vlog, maybe a little bit less, but it is currently Wednesday. Yes, it's Wednesday the 30th. Tomorrow is the last day of the month, and I have to wrap up this video. So I have a couple of updates for you. First of all, I finished King of Scars today. So I don't really remember what I said about this book previously, and I'm not going to go back and watch the footage because I just don't have time, because I have to do this, and then I have to edit all this, and it's going to take forever, and then I have to upload it, and it's going to take a long time. So I'm trying to speed through it. But my final thoughts of this book, I have already written my Goodreads review, so you can find that linked below. Basically, I really enjoyed this book. I thought that the story arc was very smart. I really enjoyed where the characters' journeys went. I especially loved getting backstory for Zoya, who has quickly risen in the ranks of my favorite Grisha characters of all time. My only real complaints with this book are Nina, which I've talked about at length throughout this video. I just don't feel like she really had a purpose in the story. It kind of felt like 2 completely separate stories. So every time I was reading a chapter from Nina's perspective, I was not super thrilled, and that's really unfortunate considering that's like a third of the book. That's like a good chunk of the book that I wasn't loving. Like, I wasn't hating it, and it definitely got better in the second half, but because I just don't really care about Nina so much as a character, I found myself very like disengaged from her story. Like, I guess this is like a mild spoiler, but her storyline and Nikolai and Zoya's storyline never met up in this book. So I'm not really sure exactly how they're eventually going to meet up, because obviously they're gonna have to. Obviously there wouldn't have been a point for Nina to be in the book at all if at some point she is not gonna meet up with Nikolai and Zoya. But I feel like there's still so much stuff that has to happen between now and then. It's very clear that this book is just a big setup for the second book. Like, this is setting up a lot of different stories that are gonna be concluded in the second book. And I honestly don't know how Leigh Bardugo is gonna wrap up all of the storylines in just one more book. Like, it almost feels like it needs to be a trilogy just because there's so much in this story. I will say that this has gotten pretty mixed reviews in terms of like love it or hate it. Like, people either love it or basically hate it, and I can see why. I definitely understand some of the criticisms that people have had of this book. A lot of people's complaint is that it doesn't really feel like Nikolai's story. I would disagree with that. I think that it is Nikolai's story. You have to remember that for the majority of this book, Nikolai and Zoya are together, and Zoya's storyline is her own, obviously, but it's very much connected to Nikolai. So 2/3 of this book is about Nikolai. I think that also people were upset about the ending, and I definitely agree to that to a certain extent, because I personally don't love the way this book ended. I felt like it was a little bit cheap, honestly, because it wasn't like even super well done, and also it basically negates the entirety of the original Grisha trilogy. Basically everything that happened in the original trilogy, the way it ended especially, I wouldn't say necessarily gets undone in this book, but definitely gets undone a little bit in this book. I liked this a lot. I love being back in this world, and I'm sure that like my bias towards how much I love this world is maybe coloring my judgment of the book a little bit. Like, if I didn't love the Grisha trilogy so much, and if I didn't love the Six of Crows duology so much, I feel like I probably would have liked this less. But because I have a very strong love and connection to the other books in this entire universe, I'm never gonna like not enjoy a book written in this world, because I just love it so much. Yeah, I really liked this. I'm so glad that I finally read it, but I am also glad that I waited to read it, because I felt like my opinion wasn't going to be tied to anybody else's opinion. Like, I read this and formed my own opinions, which obviously is what we're always trying to do with books, but it's very easy to let hype kind of overtake a book for you. And I'm glad that I waited on this one so that the hype could kind of die down. So now that I've finished talking about this book, I'm gonna move over, sit at my desk, and like wrap this whole video up, because I gotta tell you some things, and I want to do that at the desk, make it a little more official. All right, so I am officially wrapping up this vlog that I've been working on for so long. Like, I think 3 weeks at this point it's been going on, and I read 3 books, which, okay, yeah, let's acknowledge the fact that at the beginning of this video I said I was going to read 5 books, and I'm not gonna do it. I don't want to carry this video over into November for one simple fact, and it is that I'm about to talk about all of these books in my October wrap-up that's gonna be going up in a couple days. And if I carry this vlog into the next month and read the other 2 books next month, I will have already talked in a wrap-up about 3 of the 5 books in this video, and I feel like it would be very repetitive. I feel like people wouldn't really necessarily watch this vlog if they've already seen me talk about these books in my wrap-up. The 2 books that I didn't get to were Wilder Girls by Rory Power and On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. 2 books that I still really do want to read. I'm still excited for. They're still on my TBR, but I just was not able to get to them in this vlog. I didn't really plan my time out well, and this was a really good learning experience for me, because I have so many plans for more TBRs like this in the future, and I feel like I'm like better equipped to do videos like this in the future because of what I've learned throughout the last couple of weeks of doing this video. I had a lot of stuff going on right here at the end of October when I could have been reading. I couldn't have been reading because I wasn't actually physically able to read. And so yeah, I did only finish 3 of the 5 books, but I'm honestly okay with it because I had a really good feeling about all of these books, and I feel like I can talk about them and talk about booktube hype and not necessarily have to have read the other 2 books. So let's talk about each book individually really fast because I've already talked about them. I'm sure that at this point this video is like an hour long, so who knows if people are even gonna watch it in the first place. So the first book I picked up for this vlog was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. Obviously Beauty and the Beast retelling, super hyped, came out in January. So many people have read and loved it, and I really enjoyed this one. This is a book that I had a ton of fun while I was reading it. I mean, it's not a new favorite of all time, but I enjoyed the process of reading it. I basically read like this entire book, this like 500-page book in a day, which I have not been so interested in a book to do that in a really long time. So that was really great. I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the story. I'm so excited about the sequel, which is coming out in January. And I am just really glad that this video idea that just came in my head ended up being successful, and I found this book that I probably wouldn't have picked up at all, or at least not anytime soon, had it not been for this. Was A Curse So Dark and Lonely worth the hype? 1000%. Next up, I read The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. Again, the first book in a series, and the sequel is coming out early next year, I believe. This is a book that is basically Stranger Things meets The Raven Boys. Sort of. Of the 3 books, this was definitely my least favorite. I really liked the idea behind the story. I didn't care for the writing style. I liked the characters for the most part, but I feel like the world and the magic of the world wasn't super well explained. Yeah, I liked this, and I definitely will continue on with the series. Like, I am super intrigued to see where the story is going to go next. In terms of like living up to the hype for me, I would say that this one definitely didn't. Not necessarily worth the hype, but still overall a pretty enjoyable read, and I can totally see why people love it so much. I just don't think that it lived up to the hype personally for me. And finally, obviously, King of Scars, which I just talked about at length. Again, the first book in a fantasy series, so I guess I was definitely in a mood with these books. I think for this one, the hype is a little bit different because I feel like this book was especially hyped for people who love the Grisha trilogy and the Six of Crows duology, and of course that's me. I love those series. The hype feels a little bit different because you definitely have to have read those series to read this book, and I would say that for me it did live up to the hype. Like, I definitely enjoyed this book a lot, but I can also acknowledge that it has some flaws. It's not perfect, and I understand why other people have not loved it as much as I do. Let's do like a wrap up of my thoughts, and let's be very smart. I think that hype is good in some cases. I think that in some cases hype can also kill a book because expectations can get really high. I understand the need for hype because more people buy the book. A publisher hypes a book up, or they, you know, get influencers to hype something up, and more people are bound to pick it up. And I also understand just personal hype, like being excited about a book, being genuinely excited about reading something. But I can acknowledge that sometimes hype isn't the best. And so I think that it is good sometimes to just take a step back and wait for hype to die down, or, you know, not let other people's hype for a book color your own experience or expectations of a story. And I have learned throughout the course of this video that for the most part, or at least when it comes to, you know, these specific books, I agree with the hype to a certain extent, but I can also acknowledge its imperfections, and I will never stop reading hyped books. Obviously, like, hype is there for a reason, and I'm going to continue to do what I was doing before, which sometimes is read it as soon as it comes out and like get on the hype train, and sometimes it's like wait a whole year and then pick it up. So I don't know that I necessarily learned anything about myself or about hype in general. I just feel like I had a good time reading these books, and I had a good time vlogging, even though this video has been in the making for several weeks, and I am excited to be done with it. And I'm also excited about all the sequels to all these books. So that's the end of this video. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, specifically the 3 that I read, but also the 2 that I didn't read. I'd really love to know. Do you agree or disagree with any of my opinions? I'd really love to know that as well. Did the hype kill these books for you, or did it like make you more interested in them? Did you agree with the hype? Did you disagree with the hype? I'd love to know all of the answers to all of my questions down in the comments. Also, let me know what some of your favorite, like most hyped books of 2019 were, because I might do another installment of this video. Maybe early 2020 I'll do another like reading 2019's hyped books or whatever. And let me know some books that you are really excited to hype up for 2020, because it's just around the corner and I have already been making my list of the releases that I'm most anticipated by. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I am so happy if you stuck around this long, because I can only imagine how long this video is going to be. I hope you enjoyed this video. That's the next thing I say. And I will see you again very soon. Bye!